I'd like to welcome everybody this evening. My name is Christine Curry, and I'm with the Izaak Walton League's Iowa Division. And I'd like to welcome everybody to our Watershed Talks on May 19th already. And we are thrilled to have the Lobe Rangers with us this evening. We actually have the opportunity to have them all with us this evening, which is just amazing because of their busy schedules. And hold on here. For those of you who are just coming in, please mute your microphones and please place your name and where you're from in the chat box. Again, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself again. Christine Curry with the Izaak Walton League, the Iowa Division. And this evening we have the Lobe Rangers, three farmers from the Des Moines Lobe. Our title for this evening is From Practice to Policy, a Farmer-Led Conversation. And as I mentioned, we have all three of the Lobe Rangers, and we are super grateful to have them with us this evening. And they're going to share a little bit about what they're doing and how important their voices are. I'm saying that. They may not say that, but I'm going to say that. And take it away, Zach and Matthew and James.
Okay, I'll get stuff shared here just a second. Okay, so can you see me in full screen mode now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Zack Smith, and I'm one of the founding members of the Lobe Rangers. And we're thrilled to be with you tonight and have the opportunity to come on and have a discussion. We don't have a ton prepared. I put together here 5 or 6 slides to just kind of give you our background, what motivates us, what we're working toward, and how we hope to bring our somewhat unique farmer perspectives to hopefully help shape policy that will result in meaningful change in Iowa to make Iowa a better place to live. That's, if I had to kind of sum up what we're trying to do, that's kind of our primary driver. So, um, like Christine said, we're all from the Des Moines Lobe, and just to make sure everybody understands what that means, the Des Moines Lobe is the geological formation that is on this map here, where you can see the colored amount where the glacier went, whatever, 14 to 16,000 years ago, and kind of flatten north central Iowa out. And it's also the landscape of which the Raccoon and Des Moines rivers also help drain, and what ends up in Des Moines and makes a lot of headlines. And so all three of us are from across the lobe. You can see here on the map, we have our names color coded so you can see kind of where we um, live. I'm up here in northeast Winnebago County. Matt is south of Algona, and James is west of Fort Dodge near Rockwell City. So I think to start off, what I'd like to do is just have each one of us go and give 3 or 4 minutes, guys, just to kind of introduce yourself, your operation, your family, why you're doing it, that stuff. And James, I'll let you go ahead and take it.
Okay. Uh, Thanks for having me on here also. James Hepp, Rockwell City, Iowa. I'm a first generation farmer along with my wife Paige. We have three wonderful kids. My oldest Karsten is 4. My second son is August and he's 2. And then we just had a baby girl Dorothy and she's 7 weeks old and growing like a weed. So pretty busy life here. Like I said, first generation, took over a high school buddy's dad's operation. The family owned a fair amount of land and started working for him. One thing led to another, and here I am, farming full time. Have expanded and expanded my family. So family is very important to me, and that's what drives me. Um, Corn, soybeans, been growing some oats, dabbling in that. Hopefully, we'll be growing more oats in the future for Landon's plant up in Minnesota. Been growing some rye for several years. All my acres get a cover crop, three species blend. All my nitrogen goes on in season. Um, pretty pretty active in my community with different organizations on the fire department for about 18 years. And so yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm doing. I think I can't remember if I said or not, but all my nitrogen goes on in season. And so yeah, conservation is pretty important. We no-till the soybeans, strip-till the corn. That's what we're doing here. So
Go ahead, Matt.
Matt Bormann. I farm south of Algona in southern Kosciuszko County, and very similar operation to Zach and James. We started on this journey back in 2011 when corn was really expensive. $7.48, I think, was the day that we decided to start strip tilling and trying to learn more about fertilizer placement and all that stuff, because we had a family meeting and we're like, this isn't going to last forever, and what are we going to do to adapt when corn is half price, and how are we going to learn all this stuff better? And my brother's a crop consultant, and my wife has got her PhD in soil science, and it's just always, I don't know, we've just always been interested in this stuff, and it was always a way to try to make the farm run better. So then, down the journey, just learning more about everything, and we're getting more to today, and it, just how much better and more efficient the farm has been running because of the changes that we've made. Without having to own all the equipment, and watching it, now when it rains, better water infiltration, and residue and silt and everything isn't running all over the place. I spent 2.5 years on the state soil and water conservation committee from the early spring 2021 till fall 2023, and then just kind of resigned because I just didn't see the action that I thought should be happening in the state. It was more, when you're on those type of committees, your job is to promote conservation, which I was doing. We've had how many field days out at our farm, but it's always the same people that show up to everything, and you're just not seeing the level of landscape change. And so then, I kind of helped start a peer group back in the fall of 2023 on Snapchat. And it was just kind of farmers getting together, talking about this with the same interests. And then we always wanted to bring it to something bigger and better. And ended up being me and James and Zach that pushed it a little harder, and ended up launching this thing back in, what was it, towards the mid to end of February, and start sharing some ideas, and it's really evolved into something. So if you would have asked me a year ago if I'd be doing this, I wouldn't have believed you. So
Yeah, and so I'll round it out with my intro here. So Zack Smith, I'm a 46-year-old farmer from Winnebago County. I was born and raised in Buffalo Center. Graduated from North Iowa High School, went to Iowa State, and majored in agronomy, and graduated there in 2002. I always wanted to farm, but I didn't have the option because I had four younger siblings, the youngest of which was 17 years younger than me. So my folks had a ways to go to get everyone through college before there would be room. So I went to Iowa State to, like I said, get a degree in agronomy, and I came out and I essentially worked in big ag for from essentially 2003 until 2021 in various roles. But primarily, I was a crop protection, herbicide, pesticide salesman for about 11 years, and then I was a pioneer seed dealer from 2015 to 2021. And then one of my customers gave me the option or the opportunity to take over their farm. In between what they had and my dad had, that I had been farming part-time since about 2010. I had enough to farm full-time, and so I became a full-time farmer in the fall of 2021, I guess, and walked away from the business. And I was happy to do so because I didn't believe in the system I was participating in. I was successful in that system, and was able to establish a good life for my family, but I didn't feel good about what I was doing, and I wanted to work. I wanted to spend the second half of my career working towards something to make the system better. And so I've done a bunch of other various things. I've got a startup company called Stock Cropper that tries to integrate livestock back into row crop fields, and big into experimenting. But I've been passionate about the soil health piece since 2011. That's when I got into strip till, got into cover crops in 2014, and the operation has been just like these guys. I've been all in since 2014 with all those activities, and I joined this. I'm happy, really happy to find two other people that are willing to stand up and say the things that we are and start this group. And yeah, I couldn't be prouder to be part of the organization. I'm a proud dad. I'm wearing my Iowa State gear tonight. I got two girls at Iowa State, soon to be graduating from the business of or the College of Business with degrees in marketing. So I'm proud about that. And yeah, I live outside of Lake Mills here with my wife Mandy. Um, so I wanted to kind of go through some of the common threads within our group to give you a little bit more context and maybe fill in some of the holes. So like we already covered, all three of us utilize strip till, no-till cover crops and in-season nitrogen. Those are kind of our core pieces that hit the hardest from if you're living within the corn and soybean complex anyway, as far as how you can really maximize some of these things. Um, Between the three of us, these are the crops that we're growing. James, I think, mentioned this in his part. I'm also part of that oat plant as well. I'm raising oats for the first time on my farm this year, which is really exciting. One thing that we didn't talk about is that we're either current or former Farm Bureau members. Matt and I, James is still with Farm Bureau. Matt and I were disgruntled exiters, I guess, in the last couple of years. I was there for 3 years, thinking that would be a good avenue to go and advocate for change. But it turned out, in my opinion, to be kind of a fool's errand. And so that's why I walked away from that and wanted to start something like this. So we also have kind of an uncommon makeup for somebody talking about water quality from a stereotypical standpoint. We're two registered Republicans and an independent is our political makeup. And but that shouldn't make any difference because water quality, soil health, a better Iowa, there shouldn't be any partisanship to that. So we identify ourselves as a partisan group that's passionate about soil health, making our soil better on our farms, not only for other people, but for our own productivity and our own bottom line, because healthy soils are, profitable soils in our opinion. We're passionate about water quality, not just for folks downstream, but for our own bottom line economic interests. If we're going to put nitrogen out, we want to make sure that nitrogen is actually getting into our crops instead of leaving and being a loss on the ledger out through the tile line, right? And number three, we're passionate about human health. This cancer thing is real in Iowa. And, personally, I talk about it a lot. I've got in the last 6 months, I mean, my dad got diagnosed with kidney cancer. I know probably 5 or 6 people that I either grew up with in their mid 40s or that I'm friends with here locally now that are dealing with colorectal cancer, thyroid cancer, a couple of cases of breast cancer. And, with the statistics being what they're being, it's not just coincidence or happenstance. It's a real thing. What is the exact cause? I don't know, but there are things that we know that we're doing in agriculture that we should be questioning, and that's okay to do, in our opinion, and ask questions and try to come up with solutions to address those things. Um, let's see here. Yeah, that was the last one there. So now I'll switch over to what we call the Lobe Ranger tenets. So these are the things, essentially that we believe in. So, or kind of our core principles that we wanted to share with you tonight. So number one, we're a nonpartisan group of folks that are focused on influencing the public and lawmakers to create policy that achieves meaningful change in reducing Iowa agricultural's negative external costs that nobody is keeping track of at this point. Number two, the policy that we want to develop should be guided by the science that's already in place, which is that from the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy that was established back in 2013. Although we have to admit and acknowledge that the voluntary conservation piece that was part of the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy has been a failure. On the Des Moines Lobe right now, the practices that would get us to meaningful change that are spelled out need to be at a 60% landscape level or higher. And right now, we would estimate on the Des Moines Lobe based off of our own observations and that we've actually done some census work driving around making estimations that we're less than probably 2.5% of farmers on the Lobe, or the 2.5% of the acres on the Des Moines Lobe are using the suite of practices it would take to achieve the meaningful change laid out by the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy, which was put in place to address, the nitrogen and phosphorus runoff into the Mississippi River Basin back then. So we want to acknowledge the pieces of that are not good, and the voluntary part has not worked out as planned. And so what we advocate for is, we think in order to get to the levels of meaningful change, we need to have accountability based broad acre policy to achieve the goals that are laid out by the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy. In order to get to, 60, 70%, we have to have skin and teeth in the game to get adoption of these practices across the board. And number five, farmers need to be leading the effort in calling for change. I think that's something that's super important. I think there's a lot of people out there that are like us. Well, we know there are because they've reached out to us since we've launched this and thanked us and said it's nice to have some farmer voices that are speaking out on this because we know what it actually takes on the ground to produce these things. And it's important that if we want to have credibility as an industry, that we need to tell the truth on some of these things, or not some of these things, all of these things, and be willing to talk about it and want to have the industry improve as a whole. So these are kind of our core values and the things that we really stand behind. As far as some of the policies that we've identified that we think, we're kind of moonshot guys. We really haven't done a lot in government before, and so a lot of people are going to probably call us naive for kind of the ambitiousness of these policies. But we think, we want to put out things, on the farm. We want to do things that we know are going to work and turn things around in a quick hurry. And so these are the ideas that we have. So the first one is a nitrogen use tax on all applications of manure or synthetic nitrogen applied prior to April 1st. So how that would work is that if a farmer, buys anhydrous ammonia in October, or any time between then and the 1st of April, there would be a significant tax placed on that to build in the external costs that we are currently ignoring in our system by pretending that when we apply nitrogen on that it's going to magically stay there until the crop needs it the next June. So we need to have a mechanism in there to build in the true cost of what things like fall anhydrous or fall urea, which happens in some areas, or fall manure, which increase the risk of the time value risk of the nitrogen being able to be converted into nitrate, which can end up in the tile lines and not where we want it. The second big piece is that it can't just be on the backs of farmers. Landowners have a responsibility in how their farms are being farmed, and with 65% of I think farmland being leased. We have a lot of absentee folks that don't care about anything on the farm other than getting the $400 an acre check come the 1st of March. And we need to have those people engaged for the future of Iowa and future generations by caring about that. And so we propose a land use property tax for landowners based off of the intensity of tillage that they have happening on their acres, as well as encouraging year-round ground cover, whether that's from residues or cover crops. A lot of details to shake out in that one, but that's kind of the basic gist. And then beyond that, we echo that we think we should follow the state of Minnesota with mandatory 50-foot buffer strips around all streams. I went kayaking last year on the Shell Rock River, and it was absolutely embarrassing as a farmer to see how many places, the corn was falling into the Shell Rock River. Just I don't know why we need to do that. And then the last piece is funding the water quality network that the University of Iowa started with the real-time network that was not funded in the legislature's bill that they passed. That needs to happen because we need to have the real-time stuff. What they put forth with the Iowa DNR with monthly monitoring is not sufficient to gauge that, in our opinion. So those are some of our policy proposals. I'm not saying that's all of them, but those are the big hitters that we'd like to focus. And really, our approach is we're trying to, we're three guys. We have no money into this. We're using social media to try to amplify this message and put it out. And our goal is to help educate the public help educate lawmakers. It's been shocking talking to lawmakers, how few of them have a good grasp on where we need to get to actually expect things like nitrate levels to actually decrease. We've talked to a lot of really powerful people that couldn't answer that question on what's actually in the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy. And so there's a big gap of knowledge for, I think, our lawmakers and the general public to know how far we have to go to expect things to actually get better. And so until folks know that, we can't put together intelligent policy that helps us get there. And that's really what we're aimed at doing over the next couple of years. Our goal and our hope is to arm the public, arm lawmakers. If our current lawmakers don't want to help us with this, let's find people that will run for the legislature that we can train up on, the reality and the science of what it's going to take and have them run on those platforms and get policy in place that we can start to turn the state around. So, and with that, I'm going to shut up because it shouldn't be just about me talking. I guess first I want to ask James and Matt, guys, is there anything that I left out or omitted throwing this PowerPoint together an hour before this tonight?
I thought you did. I thought you did good. I'll add nitrogen use tax. We don't have to call it that. We can call it a disincentive, or we can call it a use fee, and maybe you call it 10%. You pay on a ton of anhydrous or something, and then if you're not going to abide by the nutrient reduction strategy, I know this is a bold strategy too, by the way, and we're probably not going to be liked for it. But if you don't abide, maybe you pay that in, and then maybe somebody that wants to switch to in-season nitrogen can get money back out of the system, rather than the taxpayer paying for all this stuff with incentives that the taxpayers are paying for. Maybe the people, it funds itself. So you pay into the system where you can take out of the system. And then we're also hearing a lot, farmers are constantly complaining about the lack of landowner participation. And you hear it every single day, complaints about landowners not working with farmers, not wanting the conservation practices, wanting big cash rent checks. Let's get them involved. So maybe you can't be an absentee landowner in California and get a check once a year and have zero participation in knowing what's going on the farm. Like, let's get them involved and make them know more what's going on the farm.
James, anything that you want to add?
Did good.
Good. Okay. So, yeah, I guess at this point, what we were hoping to do is just open it up for discussion, and we're happy to, if answer any questions that you have, or if there's other policy ideas you'd like to hear us talk about, or just ask us general questions. We're happy to open it up. So I'm gonna stop sharing here, and yeah, I'll let Christine kind of field things and throw them our way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and we so need your voices. I mean, there's so many of us that, are trying to say the same things that you are, but it doesn't come out the same way from our voices versus yours. So we are super grateful to have you with us. Mary Ellen Miller has her hand up, and then we'll let Chris Henning might help me field any questions that are already in the chat box, but let's have Mary Ellen.
Sure. Really glad to have you guys on. I've been following you since you came out of the chute and excited about your work. I'm curious, are you involved with the effort to build this oat processing plant in Minnesota?
Yes. Yeah, I'm an investor, and I think James is going to be growing for them, I think, next year as well.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about that project?
Yeah, it's a fantastic project. It's led up by a fellow Iowan from Latimer in I think it's Wright or Hardin County. Landon Plagge is his name, and Landon wanted to build the old plant in Iowa, but the incentives, the state of Iowa didn't want it as bad as the state of Minnesota did, so he built it in Albert Lea. It's going to at initial peak capacity, it's going to, or I should say, at full capacity, it will be able to process about 50,000 acres worth of oats, and The unique thing about that oat plant is that it will be the only plant in North America that has the ability to claim no gluten contamination, as they'll only process oats at that plant, no other type of grains to contaminate with gluten. And then it will all be uh, Iowa, Minnesota, or South Dakota, Wisconsin based, and none of the oats will be treated with glyphosate. And there isn't another oat mill in North America that I'm aware of that can claim those two things. So there's a lot of food buyers that are very excited about that opportunity, and I'm tickled to have the chance to have it so close to. It's only about 35 miles from my house, and so it's easy for me to get it to market. James will have a lot longer way to go from Rockwell City up to Albert Lea, but it's an exciting thing, and oats are a great third crop. We used to have about 6 million acres of oats back in the 40s, and now I think I don't know if we have, 20,000 acres of oats in Iowa now. So it'll help. Is it going to fix all of our water quality issues? No, because, a single county in Iowa is 250,000 acres roughly. So this is going to generate 50,000 acres of demand, across 3 states. So it's a good start. It's a good story. But it's not going to solve everything. So,
That's,
Christine, second question, unless
yeah.
somebody else has.
Yeah, no, go ahead,
Well,
Miriam.
Well,
okay.
this is on my mind because I just learned about this today on a Facebook comment. And I live way in southern Iowa in Wayne County, and I drove around this morning and was just appalled. On my farm, I got 5 inches of rain this weekend. And of course, last week, the planting was just going 24 hours a day before the rain. And I was so dismayed to see a new field that I'd watched this past year was pasture cattle for years be dished up, a couple of small little terraces put in, sea slopes, sea slopes, maybe even close to D slopes, and heavy rain and all of this dirt just rolling down to the fence at the ditch. But what just, I'm upset about the loss of topsoil, but what I didn't know was, and correct me if I misunderstood this, that when they apply the corn, they apply a topical herbicide. I think it's a post-emergent herbicide. But anyway, a topical herbicide that isn't mixed in the soil. It just lays on top when they plant. That's what I was understanding from this Facebook post. So when this heavy rain comes in, that's just washed down the hill, right? That just washes that herbicide down, right? Well,
if you
how
get
does
it,
that? So are you guys using that practice, or have you altered that practice, or what's your best advice about that? It seems to me like a total waste of money.
when do
Could
you
be
guys
wrong.
take that?
Yeah. So generally you'll have like a burn down type application, which will kill off any weeds that grew over the previous fall and the spring. And then traditionally you will plant. And then after that, before they call it pre-emerge, but it could be before you plant or right after you plant, but before the crop comes up, they'll put down like a residual herbicide. And that's pretty common practice. I'm quite confident all of us do that. But obviously, if you're going to have dirt moving, that would be a waste because that herbicide is in that top little bit of soil to prevent weeds from sprouting. So you are correct. That would be a waste, and that's really sad to hear that all that soil was moving. For a lot of us with our reduced tillage, we have a lot of residue on the surface, which helps. Nothing will eliminate erosion, but it will reduce erosion greatly. Between strip till and no till, and then adding cover crops is always a great like item to add to it, and that will help hold stuff quite a bit. This spring myself, I'm really flat area, and our ditches were so full of water. I had some water kind of jump the ditch and go across my field, and I went out there thinking it moved some soil, but I had a really good cover crop stand, and it only just moved the residue from the prior year. So I was pleasantly surprised. We don't always get that lucky, but we're always trying to do better. That's our main philosophy between the three of us. None of us have it figured out, but we're always trying to do better, constantly moving forward. Anyways, so hopefully that kind of answered your question. I probably kind of threw a lot at you there. Sorry.
And
This is
I was just
uh,
going to say, Chris Henning, Chris is going to field the questions. There's quite a few questions in the chat box. Are you
I'm going to start with my own, and then I'm going to take them down through. So those
Okay.
of you who've already put a question in, we'll do those, and then we'll do hands at the end. So just a little bit about urea in pellet form and herbicide at spring, Mary Ellen. The urea melts away into what's on top. So that's a fertilizer, a nitrogen fertilizer that melts away into the no-till and the cover crop. So if we have 2% cover crops across the Des Moines lobe, which is what I just heard, versus what I've been hearing from PFI is that statewide we might have 10%. Even that's really, really low cover crops. So, and I don't know, I didn't hear numbers about minimum till, no till. I hope that it's higher than that, but it doesn't look like it in Greene County where I am. So we're going to go into the questions now. Jody Reese, who, as I remember, is down in the Wapsie area, and is asking, are you, the Lobe Rangers, I take it, testing nitrate coming off your farm? Are you doing any SOS, which is Izaak Walton's, or Water, or any of those kinds of things in the water that comes from your tile? I know there's a program through ISU that deals with tile water. I assume that you're tiled up to your ways.
Oh yeah, I mean there isn't anywhere on the Des Moines Lobe that isn't tiled. Otherwise, they wouldn't be farming it. So yeah, so we all started this spring with the Iowa Soybean Association, and we've sent our first batch of samples off to the lab in Ankeny, and yeah, waiting for all of our results to come back. So, but we plan on sharing that data as we get it throughout the summer and chart it to see kind of where things are trending. So
Great. Any of the rest of you?
how often
The
are you testing? I just wondered how often are you testing? I think that would be of interest.
yeah, they recommend or what they're sending us for is every 2 to 3 weeks is what they recommend. So
good. We try with SOS, which is the Izaak Walton protocol, and citizen science to test at least once a month, but we're testing lots of different areas and more in the creeks. The non-point pollution, which is tile water, hasn't been tested before in most places. And so it's interesting to hear that Soybean Association is working on that. Ralph Rosenberg was in the legislature and knows what he's talking about. The legislature in 1987 had fees on nitrogen and pesticides as part of the Groundwater Protection Act. Is that kind of what you're thinking of reinstituting?
well, I mean, yeah, something similar to that. Like it would be, a lot of people say, well, we don't want bureaucracy. We don't want bureaucracy either, but like we already have, every time somebody buys nitrogen fertilizer, there's a groundwater use tax that's assessed on the invoice from the retailer they buy it from. So it's an automatic thing that happens. And so what we would advocate for is that if there's just another tax that's easy to add into those accounting systems across retailers, where that would be assessed and be collected from the state of Iowa to like Matt said, to go into a fund to help, to be budget neutral. So the farmers that don't want to cooperate are funding those that do to try to improve. So
That's great. Now, Denise O'Brien and Larry Harris are down near Atlantic. They're talking about, and I think they do a lot of organics. And I heard you say, Matt, that you are all conventional farmers, as I am, that you do your conservation with cover crops, no-till, strip-till, and conserving when and how much chemicals you use. So Denise's question is about glyphosate terminating a cover crop, that the chemical kills the biota. And is there any other way besides crimping and glyphosate? Have any of you had any luck, one with crimping, and what do you do to get rid of your cover crops before you plant, or do you plant into them?
We we all plant into the cover crops and terminate with a glyphosate, roughly 22 ounces of glyphosate. If you got 2 days where the weather is 75-ish degrees in a row, you can take down about anything you want to as far as, a grass type species with a very minimal amount of glyphosate. And then, I I've heard of people trying to terminate with the roller crimpers. I'm not hearing of very good luck, but I mean the weeds are going to have to get dealt with, and the choices are going to be tillage or herbicides. And if I've seen guys that have crimped it, and then trying to grow beans in between, but you're still going to get some weeds that come up between that rye, because how are you going to manage? That's the issues I'm hearing. I mean, you guys know more about the organic that asked the question than I do, but how do you get the weeds that come back? You know, how do you get them killed? So that's kind of the deal that we're faced with, and it kind of stinks that those are the two choices, but that's kind of the way it works. So
All
All
I
right.
can add on to that a little bit too quick. So for roller crimping, I have a friend that's been doing some more in a southern climate. For right now, and I think it's coming. And that's another thing. The more farmers we get doing these practices, the better we get. And the better we get, the more we'll do it. And the more we do it, the better we get. But basically, for roller crimping to work for like cereal rye, it has to be headed out. So it's got to be completely mature, headed out in order to crimp it. Like if you crimp it when it's knee high, I mean, probably 85, 90% will stand back up. So it's kind of a timing in the northern climates. Like I left a few check strips in my covers and they're just barely heading out now. So that means I would probably have a successful crimp maybe in 2 weeks from now. But in our system right now, I wouldn't be able to stay competitive and plant soybeans like June 1, June 10th in order to get that crimp to work. And then you'd be back to what Matt said, you'll still might get some escapes and everything. So for right now, I think it's safe to say none of us like Roundup, but there's a lot of other worse chemicals. And like anything, just using proper management to use the least amount possible. That's kind of the avenue we're looking at for that. But that's the thing on crimping, though. I think it's really neat, and I think things will be coming down the line in the next few years because now places are doing research on cover crops and making like hybrid cover crops that might head out sooner, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, there's stuff coming, and we're working on it every day. So hopefully that rambling helped you a little.
And
Thanks, James. That
I'd
was
add one more.
helpful.
Add one
Okay,
more thing
Zach,
on
go ahead.
since I'm the chemical salesman, or my ex-life, I know a fair amount about this. Glyphosate is by far the best and most economic option to do it. Paraquat is an option. It's terrible. I won't touch paraquat with a 10-foot pole. Way more concerned about paraquat than I am glyphosate. Not saying that glyphosate doesn't have concerns that people should be interested in, but and then the other options would be things like the ACCase inhibitors like Select, Assure, Fusilade. But when you get to have large rye, it's definitely not as foolproof. Or products like Liberty. Liberty's a contact killer. Again, a lot of ways for that to go wrong. And so, the glyphosate thing's interesting, and I know I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers when I say this, but it's the truth. In 15 years ago, I went to a meeting where I was interested. I was really concerned about it because I was reading a lot about these problems, and there was a scientist there that said that predicted within 2 to 3 years we wouldn't grow any soybeans in Iowa if we kept using glyphosate because the soil would be completely dead and we'd tie up all the manganese and the zinc and we wouldn't be able to grow soybeans. Well, time has gone on and farmers for the most part are probably applying at least 2 applications of glyphosate to their soybean fields every year and yields keep going up. Now that's not saying that that glyphosate still doesn't have impacts on other things that are coming through. But our position is middle of the road. We don't want to get caught up in the fanaticism of either side of the aisle, where it's nothing is wrong with how we're farming, or we need to ban everything. We like to operate somewhere in the middle in reality because I think that's what's going to be realistic going forward in the future.
Thanks, Zach. That's very interesting. Randy Ferguson talks about Minnesota and the buffer strips. What can you tell us about Minnesota that they've done done beyond buffer strips, and what changes they've been able to accomplish, good or bad, with their water quality? Do you have any insight on that part?
I'm the closest one to Minnesota. It's only 4 miles from my house. Yeah, they put the buffer strips in, but beyond that, the adoption, a lot of the soil health stuff in Minnesota is less than what it is in Iowa because it's a cold climate and everybody thinks they need to till the soil to warm it up, and so that's kind of what happens. So that it's great that they have the buffer thing, but they've got a lot of other issues that are going on where they still have issues as well. So
Thanks. James Spicella wants to know if you have any converts. And before I let you answer it, I'm going to say you have other people who are doing similar things that haven't found a way to get their message out like the Lobe Rangers have. Some of the things that you're talking about, some of us in Greene County have been doing for a long time, and I think it is one of those things that it takes, each audience takes a different way of being approached. So what made your converts come over to a more conservation mode of farming? I assume that you have them. I've just converted to being a Lobe Ranger kind of person tonight so that I can parrot what you've said, because what I've been saying hasn't been getting this kind of results. So go. What have you done to get people to notice you besides having a great name and logo?
And the whip crack. Don't forget about the whip crack.
Oh, and it's about the whip crack. Okay.
Yeah. For those that don't, go ahead, Matt.
Chris, are you talking about like throughout the years? What have we done to get converts, or what are we doing to get converts currently?
Both.
The biggest thing I've learned throughout the years, and it was great advice that came from Perry Black, which I'm guessing you know him. He basically said, you got to give up trying to convert them. And I spent so much energy trying to have field days and trying to get people on board. I just gave up. I got so sick of it. They're coming, they're going to eat your free burger and whatever. The commodities groups are going to want to help you pay for the barbecue or whatever else, so that way they can put their name on it, so they can make themselves look like they're heroes to the state of Iowa and look like they're doing something. And meanwhile, nothing has changed, not much in Kossuth County. And I've honestly found now the best way is just honestly to not give a damn about it and just be myself. This is what I'm doing. This is what works. I tried being a smart ass about it. I've tried everything imaginable. And now the Lobe Rangers are here to educate the public. It's like, this is what's going on, public. We're really, we're still interested in talking to farmers, and we appreciate the farmers, but we're here to tell the people in the public about what's going on. This is what you can do. This is what you need to tell your legislator. If if you're sick of seeing semi loads of soil like the farm we were talking about down in southeast Iowa flow out of the field because of these bad practices, then you're going to have to start speaking up, because the person that did that knew that was going to happen. And if you're taking something out of pasture, you could have maybe worked it once or twice and you'd still have the sod to hold stuff back. But going scorched earth black, I mean, we know water and other products flow downstream. And, it's so frustrating to watch. It's like a lot of them just don't care about it anymore. But then every time you think somebody doesn't care, you hear about somebody that literally got rid of a moldboard plow and went to strip till, or somebody trying to cover crop where you're like, it's like you hear so and so is trying to cover crop. And it's like, never would have thought in a million years that person would do it. So, and it's taken a lot of weight off my shoulders trying to do that, because that was a frustration being on the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. It's as if I'm supposed to lead the charge and have the answers to do this stuff. I don't have any more answers than the next person does. Or you, Chris, you've been doing it longer than I have trying to promote this stuff. So
thank you. Rob Davis, what level of capital do you anticipate to be needed to transition to N application after April 1? Isn't that a lot of acres to put a lot of N on?
Yes.
Or do you think that would ever happen?
No, it's a lot of acres. 75, according to Iowa NREC data, 75% of all nitrogen applied is applied before the planter rolls across the field. So it's a ginormous logistical shift. That's a big reason why there's opposition to it, because it will be expensive for on a lot of fronts, and it will be difficult to get things applied in this manner, and it will take time. This is not something, this policy idea that we put forward, this is not something you're going to be able to just go, okay, next year this is the way it's going to be. There's going to have to be a realistic step-in process to give both farmers, the state, retailers, distributors, the ability to adjust to a system like that. So
Do you think
I don't
it
have.
can be done in a decade?
Yeah, I mean, if the people of Iowa stand up and want clean water, I think it's one of the key components to facilitating that. Yeah. So but it'll be up to the people of Iowa, though. I guarantee if you put it in the hands of farmers to achieve that, it won't happen because as consolidation happens, what we're seeing on the landscape is farms get bigger and bigger. They need to have more easy button options, and the easiest button option to push is to have your anhydrous put on in the fall. By a custom application crew, so that you can, as soon as the ground is warm enough to plant, you're not dorking around with anything else. You're just going with your high-speed 90-foot planter. So,
and
Okay.
as far as the adoption of this equipment, acting like the farmer doesn't have money for it is kind of a lie, because the same farmer that tells you he doesn't have money for it just bought a new disc ripper at the local Case IH dealer, and a field cultivator, and a 700 horsepower tractor. Not all of them are that way. I'm exaggerating, but like, there's money in the budget to spend for all the other stuff. Retool or reshuffle the money, and I think about retooling the co-ops as far as getting it in season. A 60-foot anhydrous bar takes 24 rows. It takes roughly 500 horsepower to pull. You have the tanks and everything that go with it. Well, that application equipment and all the tanks are roughly the same cost as, a 32% machine that would apply in-season nitrogen, that you could pull with a tractor, that would be less than half that horsepower. So, like, we just got to start reallocating the dollars. Let Blue Jet and DMI, Case IH, DMI, John Deere that make all this stuff, just start making. You're using a lot of the same frameworks, for iron. Just start making it to do it in season. It's not every year this stuff gets wrecked and it gets replaced. Every co-op is replacing equipment every year. Start buying the stuff to do in season. Spend the money on that instead. Like, they've got millions in the budget that they're spending already. So, start transitioning. It's not that hard.
Thanks, Matt. So Matt Swanson says, are there any other farmers on this call? And I'm going to say besides me. And I have an idea for how we could do this, Matt Swanson, because we've got a bunch of other questions. Those of you who are farmers, would you raise your hand or do a thumbs up? And Christine, you're going to count how many farmers, you count me
Okay.
and you count how many farmers. The rest of you farmers, put your thumbs up or your hand up and we'll go on. Okay. And we'll come back to this one, Matt Swanson. Okay. Quinn says, how far are you willing to go? Would you consider de-incentivizing artificial drainage? Flowing tiles are the last conduit for nitrate before it is introduced into the streams. And he would also say, I think, I would also note that artificial drainage is one of his best ROIs. And I guess I would agree with that well-drained soil is probably good, although I have some places where I have marginal ground that cover crops are my best insurance against, that the tile is not there, but the cover crops do the work. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I'll start on that one. So I'm down in Calhoun County where it's super flat. I've heard stories from my great grandfather how they could take a flat bottom boat, crisscross the county. So my county, a lot of counties in this area would be almost deemed worthless if we didn't have any tile. So if I said tile wasn't important, that would be an outright lie. But it goes back to the dirty P word, proper management. Tile is important. I have lots of tile. But with tile comes responsibility. Responsibility need proper management. So it's not fair to say tile is the problem. It's a part of the problem. I think more of the management is more of the issue. So that goes back to maybe not front loading so much in the fall. Just try and do a better job with the management of it. So like I said, we can't get rid of tile because that would deem several counties almost useless. I hate to say that, but the farm ground, the commodities just would not be able to grow. So yeah, and I don't like it too. There's some candidates will say, stop tile, we can't have tile. Well, that's not really fair or proper in my mind. But we could take it back a step and maybe reduce and add cover crops, reduce tillage. Like there's so many low hanging fruits we can try. And like I said earlier, the more we do this stuff, the better we get. I mean, so if we get double the people doing this next year, it's just going to keep getting better and better. And we'll find it. Like I've been farming like 7, 8 years, and I'm not farming anyway, not even close to the way I was 7, 8 years ago. I can't even imagine what it's going to look like in 5 years. So
Thanks, James.
That's great.
So I'd
Okay,
I'd
go
add,
ahead, Matt.
Quinn farms about 20 miles from me. He's a good guy. I went to school with him. We took ag classes together. So I would add that no, we are not talking about regulating tile, and there's practices like James just said we could be doing. I'd cite a study by the Iowa Corn Growers Association themselves that has a study that says in-season nitrogen combined with cover crops can reduce nitrates coming out of the tile by 45%. Now, if we could get more cover crops on the ground, we would also reduce soil erosion and the nitrate reduction. Like it's just nothing but a win. So like it's not like we're talking rocket surgery here of what we're trying to do, so like and we need to tile is nothing but made my farming better. Like every time we put tile in, it's done nothing but better. So
So, Chris, it looks like, do we have all the questions? And it looks like,
We've got a couple of things here that I want to make sure that I say, and we've got the cleanwaterhub.org for nitrate data, and Tony Seaman, and you already mentioned Iowa Soybean Association to run tile water samples. There's another one from Matt Weiss, and yeah, there are a couple more. Let me wrap up because it's 7:58. The question part of this, Christine,
Yeah,
that you're going to share not only this whole program with us all, but you will share the chat, and we will be able to, by answering back to Christine, keep this conversation going. And we're going to have these guys come back. Even if Christine doesn't ask you, I'll host another round with the Lobe Rangers. This has been one of the most helpful for me as a farmer that I have heard in a long time, because you are farming. A lot of people on this call are farming. How many did you come up with, Christine?
well, I think not everybody raised their hand, but I think there's at least 12 and there's probably more.
Okay. And
out
how
of,
many people do you have on this call tonight?
well, we had 47. We have 44 now. So,
Okay.
wait, and I
So
do,
at least a good heavy third of us are
yeah,
farmers on this call, more, maybe more.
right.
And lots of these comments and questions that are still here, I'd love to have time to read. It's 8 o'clock. We've had a really good conversation. Christine, I'm going to give it to you to
Hey,
do your wrap up.
Hold on a
okay.
second. I am
Yeah,
more than happy to keep answering questions. These are great questions. So if you guys want to continue, we are more than happy to stick around unless you guys have a hard cutoff. So,
no, we're fine. We do this for whoever wants to stay on.
okay.
Okay,
So,
so shall we just keep on going then for a few more minutes?
sure.
Well, you know what? If you're tired of this, we really appreciate your coming, and we'll have all of this in the recording that you'll get. So if you
Right.
have to go, you have to go. Okay. Matthew Weiss, he's all for multiple passes of nitrogen, but yes, Mother Nature, especially just recently, has a big role in getting it on, and it could put you in a bad situation if you can't get your nitrogen on. Look at last June and July, where it rained every other day, kind of like this week, and it was impossible to get stuff sprayed, let alone side dressed. He's putting on 125 units of NH3 in the fall and Pivot Bio on the seed this spring. And over the last few years, corn hybrids don't need that much nitrogen, especially what the local co-op. Zach, I'm going to ask you to talk about that part first, because you were a salesperson, and tell us what the co-op and what the salespeople are selling us, if it is what we need or if we can get by with less.
I don't want to speak with broad brushes, but in general, yeah, people oversell stuff for what you actually need. I was not a very good salesman because I sold stuff like if I was a farmer, and what I would do on my own farm. And I know there's other people in retail out there like that, but they're few and far between, in my opinion. So, like what he's saying is 100% right. I agree with him there. As to it's tough, yeah, it is tough. It sucks. The last 2 years have been an absolute nightmare for me personally. I about had to kill myself a couple times to, you know, go really, really hard when I did have a window. 24 and 25 were just absolute nightmares in northern Iowa. But I've been side dressing and applying stuff this way for 15 years. I've never not got my nitrogen on. And I don't feel like I've ever been hurt because of that, because of missing a window one way or the other. And the other thing I would say is, you know, a window usually opens up, and now especially, you know, 15 years ago, we didn't have all the high clearance sprayers that could go through and do wide dropping, which changes the dynamic of things substantially. So, you know, we all have 24 hours a day on our farm. We just have different choices, and the weather is always going to be a concern. But I think, you know, we need to make the, you know, if when we have those wet years, if the, the stuff that's put on in the fall, that's going to be more privy to loss. So you're probably going to have to side dress in some form or fashion. The people that put fallen hydrous on here in 2024, they had huge crop insurance claims compared to those of us that did it in season and struggled to get it on in June. So that would be my comment to it. I totally get where he's coming from. It does suck, and it's a living hell when weather doesn't cooperate. But we've all found a way to make it work. So
Yeah, I'll add on that too. That's where kind of necessity is the mother of invention. I personally have a Y drop machine, so I can go through in my Hagee sprayer, so I can Y drop corn. I don't like it, but I can apply nitrogen when the tassel's out if I had to. It's not a lot of fun. Any of you guys that have applicated can imagine. So that basically gives me an option to apply it from like V3, V4, all the way up to there. And honestly, the Y drop attachment on my old Hagee is probably one of the cheapest piece of equipment I own. Like it was less than 10 grand to add to my sprayer. So once again, you can work it into your budget. There's stream bars. And like I said, I'm really excited more guys start doing this in 3, 4 years. We'll be able to do stuff that's not even heard of right now. I mean, stream bar application early on is getting popular. Like I said, Y drop. I know guys that are Y dropping V4 all the way up to tassel. But like I said, you're right. You're very right, Matt. Weather does stink. It goes back to the management. Kudos for lowering your nitrogen. We don't really hear a lot of that. So good job on that and keep up the good work. Good question.
So I'm going to add one more thing about my soybeans in a year like this one, where it started raining and never seemed to quit at planting time. And we weren't able to plant soybeans on my farm. I'm a crop share farmer, for those of you who don't know me. Crop share means I'm paying for inputs and I'm getting part of the crop. And I ride in the planter with the farmer who owns the equipment and in the combine so that I know what my land is doing and when. That year, we were not able to plant soybeans until 4th of June. The cover crop was as high as my pickup hood, and the rye was inches from being harvestable with grain on it. And it was the best soybeans I ever had. Period. It got us in the field on June the 4th before other people were able to get back in to do whatever they were going to do next on their crops and whatever. But that's soy and that's not corn. And I hate corn. So I get really nervous with putting that out as a an example, but it really worked great.
We do have
So-
a hand up, Chris.
Pardon me?
We do have a hand up now. Quinn.
Okay, I've still got questions here.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we've got Annie talking about Izaak Walton League's nitrate watch and her testing every 2 weeks. James Spicella again about University of Wisconsin edge of field monitoring, monitoring for continuous monitoring, kind of like it sounds like our monitoring that we've lost or we're having to fund ourselves. Nitrogen, phosphorus, soil loss, and water loss, and big May rain that had more N and P loss than any other 6 years combined. And the importance of cover crops. Jeff, who we haven't heard from before, tiling getting a bad rap, first step in reducing soil erosion and creating healthy soil and an environment for maximum yields, which in turn this is a great point, utilizes the nitrogen and the other nutrients, keeping them from leaving the field, and puts the nutrients into the grain, not the groundwater. And some replies on this. Oh, Dan over at Boone, Ogden Boone, have you been able to lower your nitrogen rates by applying in season? Do you think there's any opportunity for most farmers to improve nutrient management? Yes. I'm going to let you guys answer that better than yes. Okay, go.
Yes, it's possible. I mean, I have a pretty low NUE ratio, and yeah, I mean, I've raised 250 plus bushel corn on 140 pounds of nitrogen. So
Good enough. Mary Ellen says, will drones find a place to improve ag practices for the better, like in areas that make cover crop seeding a challenge, or when rain prevents herbicide application to kill cover crop? And what are some of the answers to all of these reasons not to use cover crops? Like it's just not convenient, or I don't know how it works, or all of those kinds of things.
I'll speak on the drone. Drones are kind of a tool in the toolbox. They're getting better and better every year. I've been using them at late season fertility. I have not used them in cover crops yet. A lot of my cover crops are 30 to 50 pound rate. And right now that's really not quite feasible, but I hear every day the drones are getting better. I hear more guys seeding with a drone. So it just wouldn't be cost proactive right now. But I'm sure it will in the future. These drones are getting bigger and better every day. So yeah, I think drones are important. I've heard of people spraying with them before with like herbicide if you have the right licensing and timing and stuff. So that definitely could be a thing. So
Great. Okay, so Jeff has a picture of no-till or strip till maybe. And then Annie says, I really like this. Thank you, Annie. Lobe Rangers, the right message at the right time, utilizing the right way of reaching folks who wouldn't otherwise hear your suggestions. And Darcy Molesby, farming with James Hepp, transitioning part of your century farm in Calhoun from 2 strip till, no-till cover crops, in season, wide drop nutrient applications. Excited for the change, and so is your mom, the landowner. Thanks, Darcy, for being here. And thanks for adding that information. And Denise O'Brien and Larry Harris, do any of the three of you, I don't, do any of the three of you raise livestock? And how do you propose, or do you propose, getting livestock back on the land?
Um, I personally, I don't think any of us raise livestock. I would like to someday. We're going to be adding pasture around our acreage here soon to start a small cow herd, but right now it's really not feasible. So I really don't know a good answer to that, but it sure would be nice to see more cattle producers, but at the price of these cow calves. And, I remember what long ago bottle calves were 100, $150, and now they're about the price of my first car in high school. So that's kind of scary.
All right. Jody Reese talks about Minnesota banning, and here's what the answer some of us didn't have. Banned fall in applications, farmers testing their nitrates coming off their farms, and escalating step-up interventions for rising nitrates coming off the farm. And additionally, Minnesota voters chose to support these efforts at the ballot box. So did Iowans, but it didn't require the extra step of the legislators increasing the taxes, and that's a sales tax in Iowa. A penny, Carter Nordman just told us that a penny that they're taking back from the sales tax that was for something they're going to take into the school system, a penny's worth $780,000. And yeah, and that 3/8 would have been for environment, but they took a penny away from something else to use it instead of raising the tax. Matthew Swanson, Minnesota, where it was grew up in Minnesota where it's very sandy. No one put on NH3 in the fall. They managed, it can be done. Jeff is a farmer in Butler County. Mike Ehlers, commercial nitrogen seems doable to make a shift to April 1, but amount of manure to be applied due to sheer volume of product seems a ways off in compliance. Yeah, really, that would be difficult to get it applied from April 1st to the date of planting. Any suggestions about using hog manure?
Yeah, no, that's a lot. He's right. It's a lot bigger lift, just due to the logistical nature of manure. 90, I think 90% of it's applied in the fall, according to INREC data. You know, but we've done it that way, and we've expanded the hog industry with the confinement system in the state because we don't have any regulations that take what happens because of us doing that in the fall into account. And so I think if you put regulations in place, there'll be some people that will just keep putting, manure on and, paying the disincentive fee or tax or whatever name you want to call it. I also think it will spur innovation that we've needed for a long time with spring applications or specifically side dress applications of manure. There are systems like the 360 rain system from Greg Souter's group. Yeah, Yield 360. Thanks, James. That we know farmers in our peer groups that are using, and so but until you have the policy in place, the innovation won't follow until that point. We're going to continue to take the path of least resistance, which is fall hog manure, but it obviously has a cost, and that's what we're trying to bring to light. So, but
Okay.
yeah, really good point.
And
Maybe
Lisa Patrick,
maybe
go
you got to
ahead.
have a cover crop with the hog manure. I mean, maybe you put it on in the fall, and maybe a way to do it. You have somebody go in and use a spreader and spread some rye or whatever it is, and then apply your hog manure at the big tank, and some stuff's going to grow and get something growing out there. I mean, we really don't have anything growing behind it. We have fall hog manure applications going on in September, and a lot of that nitrogen is going away. And I also understand why too. I mean, some of these guys are putting on the hog manure because maybe they have a turn in hogs. Maybe the barn is empty and it's a perfect time to do it, and they have an early bean field that comes out. But then they themselves, I know guys that do it, and they're complaining that all they had to side dress extra nitrogen. The nitrogen wasn't there. It's like, look at all that money. It's getting flushed down the toilet. It's either volatilizing up in the air or it's flushing out through the tile lines. It's not a smart thing to do. So what can we do to capture that nitrogen?
Yeah, the cover crops would sure help. Lisa has a great question. Do we have too much land in production in Iowa? And if so, whose land is it that's too much?
Well, that's
So that one might be a rhetorical question for another time. Do you have something else? Okay,
I'll take
go
a
ahead.
stab at it. I mean, we've all got private property rights in this state, and we want to be able to utilize our property like we want to. And the crop insurance system we currently have is incentivizing a lot more land to come into production. Look at what's happened to our cattle herd. We need more cattle in this country, and the crop insurance system, you're guaranteed some sort of revenue off the land. So we're taking out pastures and we're seeing less livestock, and it's terrible to watch. So I mean, that's a more of a federal policy level, and we're trying to talk more about if we actually want to do something about the water quality in land. That's kind of more where our group is focused. Like, what are things we could do now that would actually make a difference?
All right. And Mary Ellen and Mike Ehlers both talked about, and I'm sorry, Mike, I'm probably murdering your last name. Talk about no-till drills to encourage seeding without soil disturbance and for soybean planting. And Mike wants to know, James, what you found to be the best way to seed cover crops and what kind of mix do you use?
Yeah, great question. So my answer would be it depends. It depends how extreme covers you are. I mean, if you're entry level covers, I recommend people just maybe have the co-op spread it with your fertilizer. Maybe just broadcast it. That works good. I'm on my 7th or 8th year, and I tend to drink from a fire hose and go head first. So I'm doing more and more species. So if just getting them out is important. But with my I'm running camelina, triticale, and some of that kind of stuff. And it just seems to grow a lot better. You could broadcast it, but I really like the drill. Now, nothing's perfect, and I'm really not impressed with the corn stalks blowing like this past winter with the drill because it snapped off a lot of my existing stalks, and I really like to leave my stalks upright. So I'm not impressed with that, not happy, but I'm gonna work on finding an alternative to that. But there's so many different species that are really cool, and I can kind of geek out on, but I won't. But they will only grow if you get them in the soil. Like a VT might disturb it down too far, where you almost need some kind of a row unit machine or like a drill. So back to my answer, if you're kind of getting into extreme more stuff, I think some sort of a drill is key. If you're just doing rye, like in corn stalks, broadcasting it, getting a rain's good. I've used if you can have a crystal ball and get rain flowing, honestly, an airplane in August and like a hard 1-2 inch rain within a week of seeding that, it's about as beautiful a stand as you can get. But if you don't get the rain, it's going to be pretty iffy. So once again, it's that dirty management word, and there's no 2 years are the same. So hopefully that answered that kind of.
I'll tag on with we do I do my cover crops with Iowa Cover Crop, and Bill lives just a couple miles from me, and their plant is just a couple miles the other way. He has an uncanny way of knowing or watching the weather, and I've flown on all but 1 year in the 14 years that I've done covers, and usually it's rye, sometimes triticale before corn, and sometimes we added in something because the program we were dealing with needed it. But flying on in August before you think it's ready to fly on is the best. And just before rain, you're perfectly right there. That's for sure. A question from Jody. That's another great question.
Yeah.
Do you consider your practices conservation ag or regenerative ag or sustainable ag, or do you have a name for it?
I'd say all the above. I don't. This regenerative, this regenerative topic too. I mean, the true regenerative farmer that I think of, he's been on Joe Rogan twice, is that Will Harris, where they're really trying to get animals integrated and perennials that keep coming back, and I don't, and now everybody's latching onto that word regenerative. Conservation that's an old word already now, and then sustainable. Well, everybody claims they're sustainable, but we're just trying to do more with less. We need to stop this behavior of, I mean, we're going to watch it in the next big rain of semi loads of dirt leaving some farms, and gullies getting cut and whatever. We got to stop this behavior, and try to do better.
Yeah, Chris.
I
Oh, go ahead, James. Go
I
ahead. And then,
I call it pro just doing the right thing. I can't save the world and go broke, but I'm going to do the best I can. Having children now, as a lot of you know, changes your opinion. I mean, I was always doing the right thing before, but now everything I'm doing, I'm thinking, in 15 years, my oldest is going to be 18. He needs a good example. I can't imagine what it's going to be like. So we're going to try and do the best we can. I want to make things better for him. All these hurdles I'm jumping over. I hope someday he laughs at me and he's like, Dad, they used to rip and field cultivate stuff. That's crazy. Like that would be kind of my goal. So just pro doing the right thing. It's got to make sense. ROI is important, but we can't lose the soil. And kind of work with programs. There's a lot of great cost shares out there. I really get frustrated when guys say they can't afford cover crops. You almost can get a free cover crop in every county. So I really recommend guys reach out. If you know a weirdo like one of us doing covers, reach out. I've never ever denied anybody advice, and I don't know everything, but I'll tell them what I've done wrong, and I'll tell them what I like, and I'll tell them 4 other people they could call. So yeah.
Okay, Christine, I hear you, and we've got 4 left, and I'm going to turn it back to you, and you do what you need with these and with anybody who's got their hand up, okay? Because I can't see that part, and I will let you take it from here.
Okay, great. I'm going to let Quinn, he was so patient for so long with his hand up, and we're going to let him ask or make a comment.
I just really had a comment about the manure. So that question was asked as far as how we plan on getting hundreds of millions of gallons of manure on in season. So, but that question was answered to the extent that it could be. So thanks. Thanks for the kind comments, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks, Quinn, and thank
Yeah,
you
thank
for
you.
being patient with everything. So we have Jeff on, and I don't think this has been answered. If we get the Z45 credits finalized and reward the farmer through CI score for all that have talked about, will that make a huge difference? Great alternative to the CO2 pipeline.
Yes, I would agree with Jeff. That would be a very beneficial thing, and it would. For those that don't know, the 45Z tax credit is essentially tax credits that a farmer could help an ethanol plant earn through their practices, like what we do with, uh, better, lower carbon intensity nutrient application practices, lessening tillage, the use of cover crops, all of those things. You could earn farmers a credit back through the ethanol plant, and this has been rumored for like the last 3 years, and it's getting closer. We'll see. Unfortunately, I'm not super optimistic on how much of this is going to be shared with the farmer versus what the ethanol plant will keep and all the middlemen in between. It's a nice idea, but I'm kind of afraid that there won't be enough fruit left on the vine to incentivize, farmers to change based off what'll probably be left over. So.
My my take on 45Z is you need to when the initial rules got announced in February of 2024, I'm still not over it yet. And I watched agricultural leaders that are voted on in this state, I won't say who they are, that had a fit over that. And they're constantly talking about voluntary conservation and new markets and all this stuff. And they had an absolute fit over 45Z as if it was being too constrictive over the farmers, with like having to have a cover crop and reduced tillage and some sort of like in-season nitrogen or nitrogen inhibitor or whatever. Like those are all the practices that those people talk about. And then also the farm groups having policy against the 45Z too. It's like they want to have it wide open for they tell you about how much they want voluntary conservation and they want somebody else to pay for it, and they don't. It's like 45Z was perfect. It opened up potential, and it could open up potential, for farmers to really make some money off of doing this stuff. Now, Zach is right. How much is the ethanol plant? I do get what they're trying to say there of what they're going to keep, but it's really discouraging to watch the leadership in this state not want that part of it when it checked all the boxes for what they preach and tell us about all day anyhow.
That's right. Well, you guys are absolutely telling the truth and based on facts and boots on the ground. And we're so grateful for that. I have put your the loberangers.com a couple of times in the chat box. I also just want to mention the Izaak Walton League's Nitrate Watch program. It's free to get a bottle of nitrates, strips, and you can use those on your tile just so you know exactly right away how you're doing. And we encourage farmers and other people to check their tile drains, just even with our nitrate sticks. I mean, it's a simple little test, and it will just give you some quick feedback right away on how you're doing, besides your other tests that you're sending in to the Iowa soybean. I really encourage that program. It's great for testing the wells, and with all of your other farmers that and that are like on wells, this is also a great way just to see where you're and at least give you a little baseline. And I do want to point out we don't have we were worried about the technology, but I'm just going to use my phone real quick. The Lobe Rangers have been doing these amazing reels, quick little videos, and
Hey, it's Zach from the Lobe Rangers.
I'm just going to show you what it looks like.
Caveat before we get into this week's video. We wanted to say that the Lobe Rangers are a nonpartisan group of farmers. We're two registered Republicans and an independent. We aim to call balls and strikes as we see them on water quality, regardless of party affiliation positions. This week's commentary, however, will be a critique of Republican leadership in the Iowa legislature. But tune in next week when we turn the attention to the shortcomings of Democrats' policy positions for meaningfully improving Iowa's water quality. With that, let's get to it. So some of Iowa's most powerful ag legislators, who also happen to be farmers, appear to be living in an alternative reality when it comes to water quality issues here in Iowa. Here's an example of that.
Folks, there's a lot of people out there saying how poor our water quality is. That is just not true. We had a report from the Iowa DNR, from the Iowa Department, and from Iowa State University showing us that water quality is improving. Now, I know that doesn't fit the narrative for a lot of folks out there, but the facts of the matter is, the sources that we trust, that we're doing a great job. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing as farmers, applying this stuff accurately, timely, and with great equipment. So with that being said, we're going to keep improving water quality with the equipment and the expertise that we have, so the water's great for you, me, my children, my grandkid, and your children too.
That is Iowa State Senator Dan Zumbach. Dan represents District 34 out of Delaware County in Northeast Iowa. He's a farmer, and he's one of the most powerful voices on agricultural policy in the state of Iowa. Senator, I didn't really catch any actual references to links or specific data to see proof of water quality improvement in your post last week, so let me share some data that is citable from public resources we know about. Iowa State University's own progress reports on the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy don't show really any meaningful reduction in nitrogen leaving the state after more than a decade of voluntary conservation. Right here in 2026, Des Moines Water Works has been running its nitrate removal system roughly 90% of the days so far this year. That's insane, and sure doesn't sound like water quality getting better or anyone doing a great job. However, in 2023, you sponsored and voted for Senate File 558, pulling state funding from Iowa's real-time water quality sensor network. You literally defunded the ability to prove your claims that things are in fact improving. Those sensors now run on temporary privately funded money, and last Saturday, one of them caught something real interesting. Bloody Run Creek in Clayton County is in your district, Senator, and is a designated protected outstanding Iowa waterway. A half-mile downstream from Supreme Beef, your son-in-law's 11,000 head cattle feedlot. A water quality sensor recorded 49.3 milligrams per liter of nitrate on April 4th, last week, after 3 to 4 inches of rain fell in the area. The EPA drinking water limit is 10 milligrams per liter. That's nearly 5 times the federal limit. 1 week later today, as of the recording of this video, it sits at 29.1, 3 times the limit. And when the DNR was set to deny Supreme Beef's manure management plan 8 years ago, you intervened by calling the DNR director directly, and voila, the manure management plan was granted. Something smells in this whole deal, and it isn't just the manure. Senator, the Lobe Rangers are farmers just like you. The era of telling Iowans not to believe what they can see in the river nitrate levels or read on their water bills is over. The practices to deal with these problems do exist. The science exists. The farmers' abilities to do the work exists. We're 3 of them, actually, that are making these things happen on our own farm. Iowa can produce abundantly and protect its water. But we can't get there by having leadership in the legislature telling constituents the house isn't on fire while they're watching it burn.
All right. So they have amazing reels, and I just pulled up that one. It just happened to be defaulted on that, but that's what we need. Your voices are super powerful, and we are super grateful that you've spent this time with us this evening. And as Chris said, we'll have you back again.
Yeah,
We
no,
look forward to seeing you again soon.
yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And if what I would say is if you like what you've seen tonight or you want to follow along, follow us on Facebook. That's and Instagram. That's where we're posting most of our stuff. We're also on YouTube Shorts. And then go to the loberangers.com and join our mailing list. Those are the best ways to keep in touch with us. And don't hesitate to reach out or email us at theloberangers@gmail.com. Yeah, we want to keep the conversation going and moving Iowa forward. So.
Right. Thank you again. And thank you everybody for taking time out.
All of you who came,
Yeah.
because all together we can make a difference.
Yep. Thank you for your voices and everybody for being here. Share the love and spread the word. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you next time.